Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Angela Dryden here. Glad to have you guys tuning in. And please know I say guys because I'm a mother of boys. I have been around boys my whole life, and guys is my word. I can be going out with my girlfriends and I'll say, hey, what's up, guys? That's just where I am sometimes. So just wanted to let you know that. But thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning in to this video. And today, I love this topic. And one thing that I find sometimes with myself with this topic, I go so much into depth instead of actually really getting to just the surface level of what it is I'm trying to explain. So my goal in this video that I'm putting out is that I will cover the basics so that you will hopefully just have a little glimpse and be going, oh, okay, I can understand that now. That makes sense to me, or I understand why ego has got a bad rap. Like every time we hear the word ego, I don't know about you, but when I'm seeing like even quotations or just people making thoughts or things about ego, it always seems to pertain to a negative perspective. And I want to offer to you that ego is not negative or positive. Ego is very neutral. So our ego, as I'm going to describe and kind of go into depth about that, it's not a good or bad thing. Ego just is, and we all have an ego. So I just want to get that real clear. Everybody that walks on this earth, I'm going to say majority. I mean, I'm not a medical doctor in that sense, but I'm going to say that we have an ego because we have a brain and we have a body. And because of those things, we have ego, and ego just is. And so ego can be used to our advantage, and ego can be used to our disadvantage. And I want to talk about that. Okay, so let's look at ego. So I kind of put together this little form of ego in a very simple terms as I can, because I really don't know the depth and stuff of ego and of our brain and body connection. I know quite a bit about body and brain connection. A lot of it due to the fact I've done massage therapy for 15 years. I have been an avid yoga practicer for about 5 years. I have done thought work on myself for probably the last 7 years. And then I have been a coach in health and lifestyle for over 10 years. And so that is kind of my experience of when it comes to mind-body connection and all the research I've done on just how much we find ourselves kind of avoiding things and what that all kind of looks like as a human and as we kind of have our human experience here. So I want to explore ego to my understanding of it. So here we go. We've got ego. This is in the center. So this is ego is us, is our, our brain and body connection is actually ego. In the sense that I mean that we have a mind and a body, and we have our prefrontal, which I've talked about before, and our limbic system, right? So we have our primal system, that's our limbic, that's our spinal cord, that's a lot of animals have that. So it's just that natural, when we talk about animal instinct, that's what that is. That's that limbic system. It's our reaction. It's our default. We have that, and it is going to continue to constantly work whether we want it to or not. Like limbic is there to help us survive. And so when I talk about it in this blog that I've talked about on ego, one of the things that I mention in this is this concept. So we have, right, we are staying alive. We want to survive. We are striving to do better. And our goal is hopefully to get to the point where we thrive. So we are alive, survive, strive, and thrive. So I want to talk about that a little bit as far as ego as well. So limbic is that alive. We are alive and we are going to survive. So limbic is going to keep us in survival mode. Prefrontal cortex is an engaging feature that we have as a human being, that we as humans have this, where we can actually view our own thought processes, kind of like we can even have moments where we're like looking out a window. It's kind of what I used in my blog as a kind of an example, looking out a window and seeing something go before us, and we're actually seeing ourselves in that situation. We can have a story within our heads, so we can attach things and make meaning out of stuff. More so than obviously any other creature on this earth, we can do that because we have a prefrontal cortex. And so that is part of that strive. And even part of that thrive is that prefrontal cortex. So it's us actually engaging in that. So like I said, this is the byproduct. This is automatic. This is the motherboard, and this is the program we enter into it. And how much we enter into it and facilitate that and utilize the prefrontal cortex is how much more we are going to get thrive and strive in our life to get moving forward in our lives of what we want to create, what our reality starts to become. And so now also we have body, right? So part of that is body as well. One of the things I talk to as a life coach, one of the things that I kind of go over with clients is our thought versus our emotions, our feelings. And so body is obviously that emotion, feeling, sensations that we have. So we have a sympathetic, which is kind of more of that stress, that fight and flight that we hear a lot about, is sympathetic. And sympathetic is attached to that limbic, right? So if we are warned about something, our heart rate starts to increase. We want to get out of the situation because we know we're in danger. If we are physically in danger, our body wants to engage into that sympathetic because that kind of warns us that, hey, dude, this is dangerous. Like, get out of here right now. This is not a good place to be. And so we go. So this is important, right? That this relationship exists is very important to us. And then we have the parasympathetic, the same with the prefrontal, is the parasympathetic we actually kind of have to engage in. We actually have to stimulate that to create that combination. So parasympathetic is rest and digest. Like we know we sleep, and when we sleep, we actually tap into that parasympathetic. So just actually relaxing. So my yoga experience of meditation is savasana, right? So we sit there and we're actually getting and flowing into our body the good stuff of what we've already just did, and we're just processing that. And so parasympathetic is the rest and digest. So the resting, the sleeping, when we actually sleep, it is restorative to our body. As a health coach, I used to always refer to it as nature's nurse. And so it is the natural cycle within our body to sleep and rest. And when we do that, we wake up refreshed and we're like, "Ooh, I'm ready to go for the day. Let's get this going." And that is because we've regenerated and we've done that within our body. But throughout the day, when things, which I like to call circumstances, come into our lives and we start to see them as being a threat, or we engage into being watching our breath and kind of engaging with how we're feeling in our body. So we're tapping into our body's feelings and emotions. We are engaging in parasympathetic. But like the limbic system, which it is the motherboard, the natural sympathetic is that kind of natural response that we have in this world. And we have that for our survival. So again, to alive and survive, to be able to be alive and survive, we need sympathetic and limbic. That's very important and crucial. But in order to gain strive and thrive, we've got to engage into parasympathetic and prefrontal. So one of the things, so what does it have to do with ego, right? Okay, so before I go into that, what does it have to do with ego? This is our whole way of how we view ourselves. So if you have self-confidence and self-awareness, that is ego. That is you viewing yourself and how you see yourself. So ego is actually you just knowing how you see and feel about yourself. So when you feel, that's the body, and when you see, that's the mind. This is how you're interpreting how you see. ego is referred to sometimes as having, right, the pride that we are more than what we are. We're too big for our shoes. And so when we start to go down that road and we create pride, pride is usually generated from the parts of comparison and judgment. So we are judging ourselves or comparing ourselves to others. We're comparing to where other people are at. And so we get this pride, which then inflames our ego, as we talk about, right? So it's inflaming our ego. But there is the other side of ego, which is a beautiful thing. It is the self-awareness that you are seeing your own thought processes. It is that you are aware of your body and where you are at in your body and how that feels, and that you're able to sit and process that. That's important because then that's that body-mind connection, and ego helps you to have that. And that is important. So if you feel good about yourself, that's ego. If you feel bad about yourself, that's, that shame part possibly. But if you feel like you're better than anybody else, that is ego and pride. So again, understanding that ego exists because we have a body and we have a mind. So ego, like I said, is not good or bad. Ego just is. And that is us observing ourselves. Maybe we feel bad about ourselves or we feel good about ourselves. That's ego. Either way, it's ego. Okay, so I wanted to talk a little bit about these 4 things down here, right? So alive and survive, we understand that's limbic and sympathetic. That's alive and survive. So strive is an interesting one. So we strive every day to improve and to get better, which is good, which is great. What I find that strive can be very tricky. So strive to me is one of the things that in general as a society, and from the research I have done, is that strive is where a lot of us stay. Strive is when you do the same things over and over again your whole life, like you've had the same career for a long time. Or you are living in the same neighborhood for a long time. That is striving. You are striving. You're doing great. There's nothing's gone wrong. You don't have to thrive. Okay, so understand that. You don't have to thrive. You get to be alive and survive because you have you have this limbic system. When things are operating correctly within your mind, this limbic system does its job and the sympathetic does its job so that it keeps you alive and you survive. Then strive is when that emotion and body connection, and when we start to observe ourselves, we can have self-doubt about ourselves. We can be judgmental about ourselves. And that's ego going into that place where we start to teeter back and forth between these things, right? We're seeing and we're viewing ourselves, and then we're feeling anxious, or we're getting into panic mode. So this is prefrontal cortex attaching to sympathetic nervous system in the sense of strive. So we can see what we're doing, and this is good stuff. We're creating what we want, but we're finding ourselves getting stuck in a circle, kind of like that hamster on that hamster wheel, but we feel like we're striving, we're going there, and then sometimes we're falling back and we're going back on that wheel again, and then we start going forward and we're going there. And strive is one of those things that it is very easy to get stuck in. And in fact, I have been stuck in strive a lot in my life. So I totally understand that. There are bursts of things that I felt I was thriving in my life, but I would say the majority of my life, as of right now where I'm at, I have been in strive for most of my life. There's been times that I felt a sense of thrive, but thrive is a little different than strive. Thrive is a sense that now you are able to be self-aware and see your own thinking process and actually become the master of your making. And so what that means is that you understand that no matter what comes at you in this world, this life, the things that come towards you, the circumstances that come, whether it's a loss of something, whether it's people not doing what you'd like them to do, whether it's a job you feel that you're stuck in, whatever these things are, or just even having a job, the idea of feeling stuck is all within our thought process. And so what I want to offer is that when we start to get really diving deep into the connection between our mind and our body, and we understand that our body is sending us signals to tell our mind about something that's coming up, and it's telling our mind to help us to process that emotion, not to stop it, not to try to like push it down and avoid it. It's actually telling us, giving us these signals so that we can process it using our prefrontal cortex. And so when we start using and engaging in that, and when we start to calm it down, instead of being in reactive mode, we start to be more of, instead of reacting, we are making those choices, and we're, what's the word? Anyways, I'm looking for a word, but I can't think of it right now. So when we're in that process where we want to respond, that's the word I was looking for, instead of react, we want to respond, and we're actually taking those moments to pause. That is when we start to engage into what could possibly be thriving. So people talk about thriving in life and that you want to thrive in your life. And what I want to offer to you is that when we start to thrive, thriving doesn't mean that it's all gone away, right? We still are always going to have that 50-50 in life, the 50 bad and 50 good. And we know that. Thriving happens when we know that and we're not afraid of it. So strive happens when we know that and we get afraid of it sometimes. Sometimes you confront it, sometimes we don't. Sometimes we're willing to put ourselves out there, other times we're not. And that is when we're just stuck with striving, because then we go back into default and go, well, I'm just doing the best that I can. So we go back into that excusing ourselves or our actions. Whereas thriving is that, oh yeah, this is going to suck and I'm going to do it anyways. Yeah, this is going to be hard to tell my loved one of exactly how I'm feeling in a way that is polite and loving and caring. It's going to be really hard for me to do it because maybe I'm going to want to react in certain ways instead of just respond and listen. And because I know that it's going to be hard, and I am aware of my own emotion and thought connected to that, I'm going to show up in a way that I allow that person to be them. And I have no anger, judgment, or resentment towards them. I can completely just let them be, even if they don't agree with me, even if they say something I didn't want to hear. And I'm willing to listen to that and accept it in and process that in a very understanding way. And in that sense, I am thriving. I'm not now stuck on the hamster wheel of surviving and keep on teetering, kind of like fighting the 50-50. I've embraced the 50-50. Like it's going to be 50 bad, 50 good, no matter what I'm doing, no matter how much money I'm making, no matter how successful I am, whatever the whole thing is, no matter what great relationship I'm in, my relationship's going to be 50 suck and 50 great. That's just it. That's just where it's at. And I'm okay with that. And because I'm not trying to make it mean more than what it needs to mean, I am now thriving because I am at complete peace. I am like in that spot where it's like, oh, I'm so peaceful about this. And this feels so good. And I get it. Right now, it's hard right now, but I am processing that and I'm not afraid of it. And I'm saying, bring it on. I'm good with that. I can handle this. I'm preparing myself for this. I'm ready for this. And that is when we hit thrive. And thrive is not for the thrive happens when we decide that we are tired of the hamster wheel of striving and we are ready to have acceptance of ourselves and our faults and other people's faults and acceptance, and that we are firm in our belief and our value of ourself and what our priorities are, and we're not having to prove it to anybody, and we don't have to excuse ourselves. Instead, we just get to show up and be us, and we let people show up and be them, and people get to show up and be themselves, and they know that around us, we're not here to tell them one way or the other. We allow people to be who they want to be. but it doesn't mean I have to agree with everything that they are, because that's not me. My values are still going to be my values, but it doesn't mean that because you disagree with someone does not mean you don't love them. I mean, I've disagreed with many people in my life that I absolutely love and I admire, and I think that they're great people, but it doesn't mean I have to agree with them all the time. And that's okay. And I don't want them to agree with me all the time. I hope they don't, because my goodness, that means that they think that what I'm saying all the time is great. When in reality, I know that life's 50-50. So I know that some things I say just don't make that much sense, and that's okay. I'm okay with that. So when we get to thrive is when we just start to really have an awareness of ourselves and our surroundings in a way that is a completely different feeling. And you know when you're getting there, you know when you're starting to break through to that, because it is uncomfortable. It is stretching. There's a lot of vulnerability and fear involved in it, and it's going to take a lot of courage. And when you get to that point and you're willing to feel all those emotions and you're willing to thrive forward to it, that's when the good stuff happens. That's when the things happen that you go, this is so, like, I just did this. This feels so great. Now in Strive, you still feel that sometimes. You still have those moments where you're like, ooh, I broke through on that and I did that. But then we find ourselves getting back again into that whole self-doubt and judgment and that place. When we start to thrive, like I said, it doesn't mean that it goes away. It means that we understand that it's there, but we don't make it mean something. We just keep on going. We don't have to interpret that. We understand that emotions happen. We understand that it's a warning signal, that it's helping us to be able to engage in our prefrontal cortex and start strategizing and figuring out and creating solutions to the problems. We know that that's all part of the process. We know that when things happen, that when we start to feel fear, anxiety, anything like that that comes on us and we're feeling stressed out, we understand this is limbic and sympathetic. It's doing its job. But if it's not front warning, in other words, if it's not like a car's coming at you, you need to get out of the street. If it's not that a tiger's chasing you, you better start running. If it's not those things that gives you immediate harm, physical danger, you can sit and go, okay, this isn't physically harming me. This might be harming my ego, right? So this might be harming how I think and feel. Like, why would they think that about me? And instead of actually doing that, we go, wait a minute, I need to pause, take a breath, parasympathetic, right? Rest and digest, just pause for a second. Now let's get our strategy brain on. Oh, okay, they're just telling me how they see it, that they think that I see it. Oh, I get it. Like they're being human, of course. Like I do that too. And so we can pull ourselves out of that. And when we start to do that, I mean, the peace and comfort that comes over is amazing. But just like I said, it's amazing in the sense that you come to a realization that I don't have to control the waves of this ocean. I just have to ride with the waves. And riding with the waves does not mean that I approve or agree with everything. It just means that I just allow people to be who they are. I get to be who I am. And those that want to accept me the way I am, that's great. Those that don't, that's okay too. I can actually still love those that don't. I don't have to put a judgment on them because they think of what I believe isn't right. That I can just kind of ride those waves. And I can be totally okay with it. And I'm willing to bring that on because I feel confident in what it is that I have to do and what it is that I believe, in a sense that I don't have to prove anything. And I get to just be me and they get to be just them. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I know I kind of dove, like I said, I do that sometimes. I dive kind of deeper into stuff, but I really hope that you get kind of the gist of what I'm talking about. And maybe you found a couple of nuggets, a couple of things you're like, ooh, I want to take away that. That was good. I want to take that point away. I need to rewatch this video and see that point again. I kind of understand what she was saying. And I want you to know that there's going to be times you're going to be like, I totally don't agree with what she's saying. And that's okay too. Like it's all good, because the way that I perceive it and I'm kind of explaining it to you, something might resonate to you and then other things might not. It doesn't mean you take it all away. It means that you take the pieces that made sense to you and go, oh yeah, I get that. Like that makes sense to me. I don't have to agree with everything. I can agree with that. And I could use that in my life. And that is the goal of these videos. That's the goal of me putting value out into the world. I want to help people just find those little bits of nuggets of information that might help them to catalyst them onto their next level in their relationships with their loved ones, and most importantly, the relationship with themselves. So that is my job as a life coach. That is what I do. If you want to dive deeper into what it is that's going on with you and really work on that body-mind connection, I'd love to be able to help you. I'd love to be able to coach you and guide you along a process that might help you to create more awareness in your life so that you can drop the codependency and start living the life that matters most to you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in. We will do another video here shortly and soon. And I thank you for watching. Take care of you. Bye.